My name is Samita Vadwa. Let's begin with the updates coming in from the Middle Eastern side, where it seems that the escalation has gone up once again, as Iran has now violated the ceasefire, according to latest updates coming in, and has launched a fresh attack on the UAE. Now, what is being said, according to reports, 3 Indian nationals have been injured in an Iranian attack on the oil industry zone in the UAE. And earlier in the day, the Fujairah media office has said that Iran carried out aerial attacks, which has triggered a fire in the oil industrial zone. Now, in the light of the reported Iranian drone attacks, flights at major UAE hubs, including Dubai International Airport, Sharjah International Airport, were temporarily suspended. This is now coming across as a latest development as far as Washington and Tehran continue to trade threats over the Strait of Hormuz. And the UAE has said that its air defenses intercepted ballistic and cruise missiles fired from Iran at a oil facility in Fujairah that was reported after a drone attack. However, Iran has not officially commented on the reported attacks. But what has now been said as far as when it comes to the condemnation that has been pouring in, that is now said to be on the suspected Iranian missile and drone attack on the UAE. So as far as the ceasefire is concerned, let's get an update from Mayank on this. Mayank, good morning. Ceasefire, can we say, is still on because it still remains very fragile, and it seems that Iran has resorted on firing at the Gulf nations again, and its first target has been the UAE.
Good morning. And first thing first, the number of missiles you have already counted, and that includes cruise and ballistic, it clearly shows that the kind of ammunition and arms which Iran has, I mean, it has not, US had not been able to deplete completely the kind of arms and ammunition they have. And in specific, it is about missile. And we had been pointing this out, actually. Now, the second point, and specifically the question you had asked is, as far as ceasefire is concerned, it is between US and Iran. So in this case, let us wait for the statements which, from the US side. Because if the bases, like, you have already said 2 airports, which were Sharjah and Fujairah airports were also hit, and they were shut down for some time temporarily. In that case, is it between only UAE and Iran? And but then the moot point and most important point is the ammunition which again Iran has displayed, and its capability to strike at a distance. So this brings, things are really remarkable and needs to be understood from the perspective that, let's say, tomorrow, because that's what the anticipations are, that will the war start, and the questions are being raised. In that case, we will be seeing that again missiles will be flying from one place to the other. So that is going to be really worrisome. As far as the talks is concerned, there had been major exchange of ideas, and specifically last time, as we had discussed about the aspect, it is about nuclear. In that also, it is about the percentage of enrichment which should be taking place and which should be allowed for Iran to continue with. That becomes the moot point in that case. So talks still continue unless both sides have said that they have stalled talking to each other, because exchange of ideas and as far as exchange of proposals is concerned, it continued even during while both sides were exchanging the attacks on each other. So that is the only hope. Let us come to the bottom point, is actually, is it only between UAE and Iran, or US is going to take some position on that? Let's wait for that at least.
Well, because as far as these attacks are concerned, it seems that the military action may have resumed to a certain extent, because US President Donald Trump has been saying that Iran would be blown off the face of the earth if it targets US vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, cautioning that Iran better hope that the ceasefire holds. And this seems to be the pictures that are now coming in of these reported drone attacks that were reported at an oil facility in the Fujairah region, so which has actually led to 3 Indian nationals also being injured. And accordingly, what is being said that this attack that is being condemned when it comes to the Gulf countries, the GCC and the EU have condemned the Iranian missile and drone attacks on the UAE. Now, as far as the UAE is concerned, it has also intercepted nearly 12 ballistic missiles, 3 cruise missiles, 4 UAVs that has been launched from the Iranian side, as per the Ministry of Defense. Now, as far as 3 people who are said to be moderately injured, and they are reported to be Indian nationals. As far as these developments are concerned, the interceptions that has been carried out on part of the UAE, as far as again, we are looking at the tensions that has significantly escalated, because now what is being said that the UAE authorities earlier had issued alerts warning of a possibility of missile attacks. And Mayank, this is coming almost into a month that we are now looking at as far as the ceasefire seems to be holding for now, but alerts are ringing once again.
Exactly, and you have said it absolutely correctly. In the sense that why we need to understand this point is actually the anxieties have grown further even since 8th of April, the ceasefire which came into being. There has been no movement as far as the Strait of Hormuz is concerned, because it is not only the blockade is not only, or control and regulation is not only from the Iranian side. The US had put up a naval blockade specifically for the vessels which are moving towards or coming out of the ports of Iran. So in that case, and why it has embroiled the whole world is actually 1/5 of the proportion of the fuel and energy which was flowing out of this region has stopped completely, has come to a screeching halt, won't be wrong if we use this term. And having said that, what is also further important is actually we only associate Strait of Hormuz with Iran. That's exactly, we need to explain it for the viewers, for the kind of aggravation of the issue is actually. The fuel and energy coming out of many of the nations, which includes Qatar, UAE, even Saudi Arabia for that matter, Kuwait and all, it has also come to a halt. So whatever the manufacturing which has been taking place, at least in Asia, including India, it has faced a major trouble, because everything moves, manufacturing moves on fuel and energy. Yeah. Not only that, the chemicals which are used in fertilizers or agricultural products, that also.
But
so there are certain important.
To note that this is not the first time actually when it comes to Fujairah's energy infrastructure that has been targeted. That happened previously in the month of March. When it comes to the port of Fujairah, that was also targeted and triggered fires and the suspension of some oil loading operations as well. So it's a very strategic move on part of Iran.
Absolutely correct, and that was the time when actually war was declared. In this case, it is ceasefire which has been declared, and as of now, we haven't seen any such kind of a movement as far as military movement. I mean to signify that point actually, military movement or any initiation of an operation from the US side, because primarily the operations or the war, I mean if we are using that term, it continues between US and Iran, or jointly between US, Israel and against Iran. So in this case, we haven't yet seen any kind of a movement, military movement from the US side, although definitely they have made a statement that they will be again bombing Iran. We remember last 1 month back, around 1 month back, US had said that they'll bomb Iran to its stone age. Again, similar kind of a statement is being made. So are we going to see some kind of initiation of an operation? We'll have to wait and watch, because it is going to create major troubles and complications into which we have already led into.
Yes.
I mean, not only about energy and fuel it is also about multiple things. NATO is also, getting embroiled into so many ways, and US has been
seen and heard the opinion that President Trump has for NATO. But these attacks by Iran appear to be in response to what President Trump's latest efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And the US reported that at least 2 American-flagged merchant ships had successfully transited the critical waterway as part of the new safeguarding initiative. And shortly after the attacks, the US military said that the battled Iranian forces and sank at least 6 small boats. So this is a threat that has now come from the Iranian side. If there are any US ship close to the Strait of Hormuz, then they will come under attack. But as far as the UAE is concerned, it has come out to issue a statement on the recent strikes that has been carried out by Iran. And let's in the meantime take a look, because as far as the injuries here in this case is concerned, 3 Indian nationals have been injured. The Indian embassy has also issued a statement. So first up, let's take a look exactly what the Ministry of Defense there in the UAE has to say, saying that the UAE air defense systems engaged in 12 ballistic missiles, 3 cruise missiles and 4 UAVs, saying that the Ministry of Defense announced that on the 4th of May 2026, the UAE air defense systems engaged in 12 ballistic missiles, 3 cruise missiles, 4 UAVs launched from Iran, resulting in 3 moderate injuries. And since the beginning of the blatant Iranian attacks on the United Arab Emirates, the air defenses have engaged in a total of 549 ballistic missiles, 29 cruise missiles, and over 2,000 UAVs. Also going on to say that this brings the total number of injuries to 227, involving multiple nationalities, including Emirati, Egyptian, Sudanese, Ethiopian, Filipino, Pakistani, Indian, Bangladeshi. And of course, when it comes to the total number of martyrs have reached 3. So there has been killings as well as far as civilians are also concerned. But this is a statement that has now been released on part of the authorities in the UAE after these attacks have been carried out. Let's in the meantime also get you what the Indian side has to say, because as far as these attacks are concerned, there are injuries that are also being reported of Indian nationals. So this seems to be all about the Strait of Hormuz, isn't it, Mayank? Because this critical waterway that still remains a part of this new safeguarding initiative as far as the threats that are being traded between Iran and President Trump.
In fact, what you said is actually the things have shifted from nuclear aspect to Strait of Hormuz. It has become the moot problem as far as things are coming out, or the kind of statements which are being made between US and Iran. It has become the moot point. So, and Iran has already said, and now it is, if such kind of number of missiles have already been fired, and that includes profiles of cruise and ballistic missiles, it is going to be dangerous. Why it is dangerous is actually, it shows that the arsenals they maintain Iran can create a major destruction if the movement takes place in Strait of Hormuz. So if there were threats, Iran has displayed that they can continue or they can fire things. And you have already brought out that there were certain smaller boats.
Why in particular the UAE has been targeted? I mean, UAE on its own has been taking multiple decisions as well. As far as its, no direct involvement is there in this war, but internally as well, there seems to be a lot of decisions that has been taken up by the administration there.
Very important question, because Iran doesn't have a capability, although once it displayed when it tried to fire its missile on Diego Garcia, which is almost 4,000 kilometers distance. What I mean to say is actually it doesn't have a capability to at least fire straight away directly to the continent of US or on American territory. So it had indirectly put pressure on anything or any country which was supporting or helping or giving a base or giving a logistical support, administrative support to the US forces. So we will have to wait for further details, because we need to understand, you brought out that at least 2 of the airports, they were shut down. So does it mean they haven't targeted any military base or something or other which was indirectly or directly helping the US military? That needs to be seen, because is it only between UAE and Iran?
Yes.
That will at least preclude US in this case. So we will have to wait and watch for the further details. That will only make us understand.
Yes,
and some statement coming out from
the UAE has also taken the decision to not be a part of OPEC and OPEC Plus. Would that have any ramifications?
See, the GCC, OPEC, and there are so many other multinational organizations, NATO included,
yes,
which are going to see a sort of a transformation or metamorphosis post the war ends, because lots of discussions or lots of complications they have arisen.
There's going to be realignment equations change as far as when it comes to the Middle Eastern war or this conflict is now concerned, because GCC nation, European Union are coming out to condemn this attack that has been done on the Iranian side on UAE. As far as 3 Indian nationals who have been injured, I would want to bring our viewers' attention to what the Indian embassy has come out to say in a statement. So let's break that update for our viewers. And the Indian embassy has also come out to issue a statement saying that they are in touch with the authorities. Let's put out the statement of India in the UAE. And this is coming at a time where air operations have been suspended once again in Dubai International Airport and also at Sharjah International Airport. That seems to be the developments. But as far as Fujairah oil industry is concerned, where these drone attacks have been reported from the Iranian side, UAE has already come out with a statement. And that is the statement on part of India in Abu Dhabi, which has now come out with a statement saying that 3 Indian nationals have been injured in attacks in Fujairah. Let's put out that statement saying that we are in touch with the local authorities for ensuring adequate medical care and welfare of the affected Indian nationals. And that has now been attributed to the MEA. And of course, when it comes to the CGI Dubai, so as far as the media officers there are concerned, they are said to be 3 of these injuries. Moderate injuries is something that the UAE also said in its statement. All 3 of them are reportedly Indian nationals, and they are now receiving adequate medical care and attention. And this is now being said on part of the Indian embassy, saying that they are in touch with the local authorities to ensure the welfare of the affected Indian nationals in these attacks. Meanwhile, another breaking update coming in. What has now been said that the US has also been shooting down Iranian missiles and drones that seems to be aimed at American vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this seems to be a direct threat, a counter that seems to have been issued on part of the Iranian side, saying that if there is any US vessel that will even come close to the Strait of Hormuz, then it will come under attack. So the volatile waters of the Strait of Hormuz, a high-stake naval standoff that seems to be unfolding. Iran has also released footage purportedly of claiming that it fired warning shots using missiles and rockets and drones near the US destroyers after accusing them of stealth approach through the Sea of Oman. So Mayank, this seems to be exactly now the point of contention where the war is taking place, or if we can call it a mini war, as President Trump has also been talking about, because there is a ceasefire and then conflict seems to be resuming at a certain extent.
Certainly. Now, this changes entire the way the things are in that area, actually, because both sides, and coming, understanding the kind of statement which was made by Iran, they say that they had fired warning shots on US vessels, which means US vessels have already ingressed into the area. And mind it, Bahrain has been the headquarter of Central Command of the US. So there would be multiple vessels which would already be anchored that side. That's what we can assume or presume, actually. Apart from the 2 aircraft carriers which were already moved into that region. Now aircraft carriers are floating air bases. So what you see is actually that region has been encircled in so many ways by the US forces. Now, and if the warning shots were fired, let us hope and wait the kind of retaliation which takes place from the US side. And if that be, then already some kind of a small skirmish. I'm using this term because it remains local or only limited to a particular area. That's why I'm using this term. So in that case, we'll see some kind of a skirmish taking place into that area, and that might initiate or trigger some kind of a conflict, which
is also there as far as the statements of President Trump is concerned, isn't there, Mayank? Because he was reviewing a new Iranian proposal to end the war, but then expressed skepticism and said that, it would lead to a deal. Then he has been also claiming that the war has been terminated because of the ceasefire. And that would be an interpretation that would, allow him, as far as the congressional approval for the conflict is also concerned. So there seems to be, again, a lot of conflicting statements that are coming in from the president.
Important point remains is that there was a excuse me. So there was a kind of a discussion which was going on as far as nuclear aspects is concerned. When I say actually the part of the 3 goals with which the war started, and specifically Epic Fury from the US side started, the first was regime change. Second, which is, I'm trying to signify on that point only, actually. Second was not allowing Iran to enrich its uranium or fissile material to reach to a military grade. That remained, and it was the talks last time when we were trying to decipher for our viewers, it was about the percentages.
Yes.
Now, if it is 90+%, it becomes used, it can be used for assembling a bomb, nuclear bomb, what we specifically call, actually. So it was supposed to be kept, the talks were supposed to keep the enrichment percentage much below 90% for
yes.
For the use of peaceful purposes, which can be used for medical purposes.
Yeah.
That's what we were surmising from the way the talks were taking place. But what you see is now, is it
enriched uranium out of the country altogether, and that seems to be a problem as far as Iran is concerned, that let's talk about ceasefire, let's talk about peace. And let's not talk about nuclear negotiations for now, because that is something that Iran wants to defer talks on it. But in the meantime, when we talk about the fresh escalation that has now happened on the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranian foreign minister has come out to issue a statement saying that there is no military solution to political crisis. And this is Arakchi. We'll put out exactly what he has to say in this latest post, because he too now seems to be calling out as far as military operations to subside. But it seems that it has escalated to a certain extent, where Iran, in an unprovoked manner, has now carried out these drone attacks in an oil hub in Fujairah, which is in the UAE. So let's take a look what the Iranian foreign minister has to say. That is the point there, because as far as the statements are concerned, a completely different picture is painted. Apart from the military actions that in a way seems to have resumed, there are diplomacy and efforts that are also taking place. But in the meantime, let's take a look what the Iranian foreign minister says. And I quote, that events in Hormuz make it clear that there is no military solution to a political crisis. So he's calling this entire issue to be a political crisis. He says, as talks are making progress with Pakistan's effort, the US should be wary of being dragged into this quagmire by ill wishers. So should the UAE. And saying that Project Freedom is actually Project Deadlock. So Project Freedom is something which, Mayank, US has been following as far as the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. And any forceful opening of the Strait of Hormuz is something which Iran does not want that to happen.
Absolutely. So what it means is actually Strait of Hormuz has become the moot point of discussion between the two nations, or the problems rest, or the reactions they also rest on any movement which takes place into this area. And Operation Freedom, in which the US had made a statement or had brought out that they'll be helping the vessels to move out of that zone, or Strait of Hormuz, what we are calling the zone actually, or ingress or come into that zone. So why am I trying to bring it out is actually that means that it is pinching everyone. The kind of a pressure which Iran wanted, it has started building up on US, because as we had started this entire discussion or talk on news points is actually that whole world is facing the pinch. While the bombs for almost 42 days were falling in Middle East, its vibrations were felt across the globe. And in this case, it is also seen in the form of cost of living, which is rising across the globe. So Strait of movement in Strait of Hormuz becomes such an important point because of that reason. And having said that, if it again starts, so the efforts from the Iran, as we can anticipate, it's just sheer anticipation. The way the reflection or the way the missiles have again fired, which is cruise and ballistic missiles, things will not be easy for any countries. Destructions would take place, lives may go. So both sides will have to again sit down. Let's hope that it remains only a posturing or the pressure points which both sides are using to at least agree or make other side agree to their conditions and proposals.
Well, that seems to be the very contention that what we are now looking at, especially when it comes to, military strikes, that in a way has resumed. But how long is it going to hold up? Because that is now we are effectively waiting on the latest statements that would be made by President Trump and from the Iranian side as well. Mayank, appreciate you joining us here on the broadcast. And to all of our viewers, if you want to catch all of the developments that has been taking place, not just in the country, but across the world, please do take a look as far as timesnownews.com is concerned. And currently that I'm scrolling through when it comes to the world section, and there are several articles that will also talk about when it comes to this basic premise on what we are now looking at, especially is Iran now war back on, and the UAE that has been attacked, ships that has been sunk in the ceasefire seems to be now hanging by a thread. So all of the developments, all of the updates that you can tune in when you click on timesnownews.com. We're going to head into a very short break.